You guys having a good time? You happy to be here? Good, good. My name is Kondabolu. I'm a stand-up comedian and writer, and I do several podcasts. And I made a documentary that came out last year called The Problem with Appu. Have some of you seen? Some of you have seen it. And some of you have heard of the movie, possibly heard of the film, right? In brief, the film is about the cartoon character Appu Pedalon from The Simpsons, who's the convenience store owner. He's a caricature of an Indian American immigrant. He is the longest lasting Indian American representation in this country, 30 years. And for a good chunk of that, growing up in this country, he was the only representation I had. That was a big part of this, right? Like the frustration of growing up in this country and not having something else. So that was kind of the initial impetus for making the film. And I did a short piece on my friend W. Kamau Bell's old show, Totally Biased, where I talked about South Asian representation. I talked specifically about Appu, and the Appu part clearly resonated with people. It was something they had not thought about before. And for me, like, you know, the idea of making a movie seemed ridiculous just because, you know, it seemed obvious to me. Like, you guys know this is racist, right? And people did not. And I'm like, but it's like a white guy doing a voice of an Indian person with brown paint. That's kind of racist, right? Like, the movie's called The Problem with Appu, but I wanted to call this, I have to fucking explain this to you? Like, it seemed, like, it just seems kind of ridiculous to even have to explain this, but okay. So, the film, you know, it has a few elements. First of all, I'm a fan of The Simpsons. I've always been a fan of The Simpsons. Huge fan. Watched it growing up. It was always tricky when the Appu parts came on because I found it funny. It's not that Appu isn't funny. People sometimes will say things like, you know, that's not funny, that's offensive. Or that's not funny, that's fucked up. And like, those two things are you know, can both exist at the same time, you know? The content being what it is and the effect the content have are two different things, right? Like, it's funny, right? It's effectively funny. It makes people laugh. However, the tools it's using to make you laugh are fucked up. Still funny, though. Like, I'd laughed, and then, you know, I'd laugh and then be like, oh, my soul's being crushed, but I was laughing. It's funny, right? And so there's that kind of dissonance where you're laughing, but you also know there's nothing else to represent me, and I'm going to have to deal with that. And I think that was one of the most accessible parts of the film, which is the bullying piece, which I think a lot of people, not just in this room, but probably have dealt with. The idea of like not being considered the norm. Even in Queens, New York, with so many South Asians, it was like, okay, in this setting, I'm not a minority. In this setting, I'm surrounded by others that have similar experience, who are immigrants, who have a broad range of experiences. But television and media is telling me that outside my world, in this large country, I don't exist. I'm not meaningful. I am not special. And that gets reinforced, and you can't help but be affected by that. I think part of it also, in addition to that piece of it, is that it really wasn't a caricature of me. It was a caricature of my parents, right? It was a caricature of Indian immigrants. And I hated that. I hated the fact that I felt self-conscious about the way my parents spoke. And my parents, who left everything behind and who struggled to be here, and yet this is how they're viewed. And I kept thinking, if people find this accent funny, when they speak at work, do people laugh behind my parents' backs? These are my parents. Look at them! They're people! See that? See the thing on the top? That's supposed to be them. Okay, again, that's a cartoon. These are the people. Like, I think that disconnect was always there. If you don't see those two people as like part of your worldview and experience on a day-to-day level, you can easily marginalize them and make fun of them. You know, I get that. If they're not in front of you, you don't feel guilty, you go for it. It's not to say it wasn't funny, but I also knew it was my parents. And there was a feeling that, you know, that there's always that disgusting feeling of like their stories are not going to be told because nobody wants to hear their stories because their stories have complexity. And thank you, come again, apparently is hilarious. It's one sentence, but it encapsulates the whole thing. Images are important, right? And it's not just the personal impact of it, like the idea of like, this is how I view myself as a result of how the media depicts me. This is the only way I'm seen, and you don't get a full view. There's that part, but there's impact with that, right? I think about post 9/11. There's a lot of hate crimes after 9/11 against Muslims and Arabs and South Asians and Sikhs and people with brown skin. And the connection is, at that time, the major two representations, the two major representations of brown people in the US at that time was Appu from The Simpsons, simple, harmless caricature, and terrorists. There is a huge range of humanity between harmless cartoon character and terrorist. It's a bizarre thing, like, am I more terrorist? Am I more Appu? It's like, it's a weird, it's on a real scale, but that's what's presented. So after a terrorist attack, which side, if you're somebody who isn't exposed to brown people, who sees them as outsiders, who sees your world as a white world, who do you think the enemy is in that situation? That's why it matters. Because the thing is, as people of color, we have to humanize white people. It's in our best interest to humanize white people. We have no choice. We have to get work. We have to go to school. Our teachers are white. The police officers are white. We have to function in a world that was not made for us. So when you see media, right, a lot of people will be like, oh, I'm not going to watch that film. I'm not going to watch, what is that, Human Torch is black? I don't want to watch that film, which is ridiculous because that means you'd rather see a white man on fire. But okay, fair enough. But there is that weird thing. Oh, I can't relate to this. This isn't for me. This is a black movie. I'm not going to watch this. This is the black movie. I can't make that choice. A lot of us growing up who are people of color could not make it. We can't be like, oh, this is clearly just full of white people. We can't watch this. It's not for us. We can't watch it. Then we couldn't watch anything. You grow up and you watch your teenage garbage, right? You watch Can't Hardly Wait, or you watch 16 Candles, or you watch whatever your generation is. You watch that garbage that you're shown to manipulate you. And my life is nothing like this. My parents don't act like this. I don't talk like this. I don't have this experience with whiteness. And yet, I still can understand and relate to it. I know what it feels like to be in love. I know what it's like to feel heartbroken. I know what parental pressure feels like. I know what it is to try to be popular, to have friends, to want more friends, all those things, to be stressed by school. I relate to you as human. So when people say, I can't relate to this, there's minorities in this. Oh, I can't relate to that person. I don't know what. You're saying, I can't relate to you as a human being. I cannot connect with you as a human being. And I'm not going to bother because I don't need to. So that's what it felt like growing up. I couldn't verbalize it that way, but that's what it was. And the only thing we had at that point was a cartoon character. Think about how messed up that time is. When Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle came out, it was seen as revolutionary. It was revolutionary that an Indian dude and an Asian dude smoke weed. That's revolutionary. That no one's ever seen that before. Indian people fucking made weed. That's ours. Oh, I can't believe it. They get high too? Like people. That's how backwards this shit was. And the other point that was important in the film that I wanted to talk about was minstrelsy, and the fact that this is part of a larger history of minstrelsy, right? Which starts, of course, I think, with the black experience in this country, the fact that black people have been marginalized, and in the media, their bodies have been used, often to sell products or for the entertainment of white people, right? You see that in films, the old vaudeville era. It was important to say it's not the same thing. The experience, maybe we're experiencing as South Asians, isn't the same thing as the black experience. But certainly there's a lineage that comes from that. And this weird kind of hazing that all people of color have to go through until they get accepted, which is so fucking unnecessary. And so I wanted to talk to someone who maybe had experience both in entertainment and in these discussions. So I spoke to Whoopi Goldberg, and as you do. And Whoopi was great because Whoopi has something, she has a collection, right? It's a Black Americana collection. I'm not going to use the word that she used to describe it, but it's a collection of items of like blackface, like cookie jars with stereotypical black features and racist advertisements and dolls and all this stuff that's horrific to look at. And she displays them in her home. And I asked her, why are you doing this? And she's like, because I don't want people to forget. Because this came from a context. What we are living in now came from something that's not so far away. I want people to know what the struggle was to get to this point. And I'm like, well, that's what I'm doing with this problem with Appu movie, right? I'm creating my collection. I want to remind people where we were at this point and how we got there. Whoopi said something really interesting during it, because I was looking at the, she was talking about these cookie jars, these racist cookie jars. And I was saying, well, clearly this was made to hurt black people, right? And she said, I don't think it's that complicated. I don't think people were thinking, oh, we're going to get them now. I think they were thinking, oh, these cookie jars are funny. People are going to buy them. That's it. They want to move cookie jars. People like racism. They buy the cookie jars. It's really that simple. And that made me think about something that happened in the film. Now, in the film, I talk about all these issues. I'm also on the quest to find Hank Azaria, the white guy that does the voice of Appu on The Simpsons. Brilliant voice actor. He does that voice. And I talked to a lot of people trying to understand how The Simpsons decided to make this character and what their thinking was, right? So I interviewed Dana Gould. Dana Gould is a longtime writer and producer on that show. He had the courage to be the only person who really agreed to talk to me, right? He didn't need to. And I think a lot of people are angry at what Dana said, but I'm not, because I think what Dana said in the film is actually very honest. And he talked about white people think the accent is funny, right? To white American ears, they think this is funny. And a lot of people said, oh, Dana Gould is such an asshole. No, he's not. He's telling the truth. White people think that's just funny. That's why it lasted this long. And I said, well, didn't you ever think that this was basic? These were simple jokes, and this is using this ridiculous stereotype. Didn't that ever come up? And he said, well, the thing is, when you're making a TV show and you have to make 20+ episodes a year for 30 years and still be funny, you just do it. You have a certain number of moves that you can make with Appu. You have a certain number of moves that you can make with Barney. You have a certain number of moves you can make with Smithers. And so you use those moves and you produce content and you have to push it out. You got to push it out like week after week, year after year. And then I realized what he was saying. He's saying, don't you understand? I got to make cookie jars. I don't have time. I don't have time to think about all this stuff. We got to make 30 cookie jars a year. People like these cookie jars. And Appu is part of the racism of Appu and these characters is how you make cookie jars that sell. So this movie gets made, and I knew it would have some kind of impact. I didn't know what kind of impact. It made a much bigger impact than I assumed. I was on The View, which was very surreal. But my mom was proud, so I won. And I was on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, which felt weird because I was telling Trevor about, oh, so there was this cartoon in our childhood as young Indian Americans and South Asian Americans. We all had to deal with this, and it speaks to so many issues with racism. And I'm telling Trevor Noah this, and I'm thinking how ridiculous it sounds. Like, yeah, so Trevor, did you deal with racism growing up in South Africa? Oh, apartheid, that's a weird name for a cartoon character. I mean, the movie wasn't just about that, but talking to Trevor Noah, you kind of know your place in that. The film became international. It only aired in the US. Only Americans have access to the film currently, yet it became an international story, right? An international story. People were writing articles about it who had not seen it. And that was one thing I discovered. You can have an opinion even if you don't know anything. I don't know why I didn't see this coming. I made this film that I thought critiqued all these different things. I expected the criticism I was going to get and responded to it in the film, and yet I still got the criticism because no one watched the fucking movie. Because that required 49 minutes. And you can reel off so much racism in 49 minutes. I mean, I was getting, tweets from all over the world. This thing became this global thing. I learned how to be called a snowflake in so many different languages, and it was just shocking. And the criticisms, I realized, it doesn't matter you know, what the film said, because whenever you criticize anything that's part of an establishment, what happens is that when it enters this public space, when it enters Twitter and the internet discussion, it doesn't matter what the content was, it just falls into the template, right? You criticize an establishment thing, or you call something sexist or racist or homophobic or transphobic, you question it, you call it a snowflake, everything's too politically correct, we're not allowed to have fun anymore, you know, you're a member of the thought police, which there's no goddamn thought police, so many white dudes would be arrested by now. Like, there's no, what are you talking about? So you get all that stuff. Political correctness is an empty phrase. It's as empty as the word problematic. You tell me what it means. Why is this a problem? What issue do you have with it? You don't like minorities talking? Oh, I get that. I mean, that's what it is. Let's not complicate this thing. There are no specifics. It just falls right into place, right? Then I started getting, you know, questioned. Like, I get criticized with things I clearly answered. Why is it that people find this offensive now, after 30 years? And the truth is that I found it to be an issue before. I just couldn't say anything because I was 9. What are you talking about? And also, I'm not offended by this. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a weird, I don't like the word offended. It's misleading. Like, I didn't come home from school like, Mom, this kid offended me. I was offended. When you're bullied, you're not being offended, you're being insulted. It's a completely different thing. It's not my sensibilities that were offended. I was pissed off. I think the other thing I kept hearing is, well, The Simpsons makes fun of everybody. The Simpsons makes fun of everybody. How about Groundskeeper Willie? How about Grounds? That's a Scottish stereotype. They use lots of stereotypes. What about Groundskeeper Willie? First of all, there's other Scottish representations. There's a range. Secondly, when you're Scottish in the American context, you become white. That's the thing about whiteness. It eats up ethnicity. Like, you trade in ethnicity and culture for the phrase white, right? That's not white's not a real thing. Europeans were killing each other for thousands of years. At no point were they like, what are we killing white people for? Like, there wasn't, oh my God, I didn't know, you're white too? What are we doing? No, that's not what happened. So people give up ethnicity when they come into this country and whiteness disappears. There's a Bumblebee Man. People say, what about the Bumblebee Man? Okay, Bumblebee Man's based on a real character. However, if I was a Mexican-American, I'd probably be pissed about that too. But I'm not Mexican-American, so I wanted to make a film that spoke to my, spoke to my actual feelings on the issue, something personal, right? And people would say, well, it's equal opportunity offense. And I don't believe in equal opportunity offense because there aren't equal opportunities. Like, you say some shit and I can't tell you to go fuck yourself. That's not equal opportunity. If I can say fuck you back to you, we're good, but I'm not allowed to. I wasn't allowed to. So only the ethnicity, a person with the ethnicity of the character can do the voice? That's not fair. Only the person, so only an Indian person can do an Indian voice. And Harry Shearer, who's a famous comic and voice actor, he tweeted how that seemed ridiculous to him, because so you're saying Mel Blanc couldn't do the voice of Porky Pig? Now, here's the difference. See, Indians are people. And pigs are pigs. You get it. And then I got, oh, you're just trying to be famous making this movie. This is just a way to be famous. Fuck yeah! What are you talking about? Oh, so let me get this. So you don't. This is entertainment. That's the game. That's what I'm in it for. Wait, so you're allowed to use racism to get famous, but if I criticize racism, I'm doing something wrong? You got to use that character to make money. I got some money from this, and it's far less. So this happens, and I deal with all this frustration, this backlash. There's a ton of other things. There's a lot of racism stuff, and there was a bunch of stuff that was crueler than that. These were the most somewhat understandable, comprehensible. These were the criticisms I could comprehend, even if they were stupid. So The Simpsons actually responded after 2 years, which is shocking to me, right? Because, you know, I'm not a troll. I made a heartfelt film. I made a love letter to my community. I wasn't trying to troll The Simpsons, but they responded to me. You're not supposed to respond to me. because if I was a troll, I fucking won. And what they did was they had an episode where Marge has a favorite book and she reads it and she realizes this book that she liked is actually really racist and messed up. So she tries to change it in order to make it something that's more relevant and relatable. And it ends up being terrible because it doesn't work the same without all those messed up pieces. And so she's talking to Lisa, and then Lisa says this.
What am I supposed to do?
It's hard to say. Something that started decades ago and was applauded and inoffensive is now politically incorrect. What can you do?
Some things will be dealt with at a later date.
If at all.
Yeah, what the fuck? Like, when did The Simpsons become establishment? Like, when did that happen? Did you hear what they said? I clearly heard them say, fuck you, Hari Kondabolu. Like, I'm pretty sure I heard it. Fuck you, Indian people. Also, it's E.T. Canada that broke the story. Anyway, they threw Lisa under the bus. If there was ever a social justice warrior in American television, it's Lisa Simpson. What are you doing? But the old rich white men that now make the show, they were just like white men before, now they're old and rich white men, which is, you know, a fatal combination. Not fatal for them, for us. And they, you know, apparently even with that, all that money and all this fame, they have thin skin. It's white fragility. Oh, someone's complaining on a fucking cable network and a movie that nobody actually watched but criticized, but were offended about it. So I'm gonna make an episode, I believe it was titled, Fuck You, Hari Kondabolu. Al Jean, who's the showrunner of the show, ended up retweeting a bunch of right-wing conservative articles supporting the idea of like political correctness is run amok and things of that nature. Mike Reiss, one of the writers of The Simpsons, longtime writers of The Simpsons, wrote a book where he said, I made a nasty little documentary, and he said that I should have watched the episode of The Simpsons they made 2 years ago, where they actually resolved this by having Appu's nephew on the show. And the things I did watch that episode, and it's covered in my movie that you didn't fucking watch. So based on this response, none of the writers of The Simpsons saw the movie. The head of The Simpsons didn't see the movie. Mike Reiss didn't see the movie, but they all have fucking opinions. Watch the fucking movie. So Hank Azaria, who I tormented looking for throughout the film, right, who did not agree to be on the film, he did watch the movie. And I know he watched the movie because he was on Stephen Colbert, and the headline says that Azaria willing to step aside from controversial Appu role. And that's a headline, of course, so he doesn't properly show what he said, because what he said actually had a great deal of depth. He said, I think this again on broadcast television, CBS, I think the most important thing is to listen to Indian people and their experience with it. I really want to see Indian South Asian writers in the writer's room, including how to impact how Appu is voiced or not voiced. I'm perfectly willing to step aside. It just feels like the right thing to do. That's somebody who saw something, questioned himself, questioned the arguments he's been making to defend himself, and said, it is not worth it. This is wrong, and it makes sense. That's somebody who actually learned from their mistakes. Should he have said it in the movie when I tried to get him on the film? Probably. You know, but at the same time, like, I'm glad that it was finally just, there was some, and it's sad that that is seen as success. Brown people are human beings with feelings and emotions and experiences. Holy shit, white guy, how'd you come up with that? I saw a movie a brown guy made. A brown guy had to make a whole movie for me to get a very basic point about humanity. And then the big one happened. Matt Groening responded. Matt Groening, who created The Simpsons, finally responded. And it was at Comic-Con, and he has a new show called Disenchantment on Netflix. And they were asking questions about Appu, because this thing had not got away. And he said, people love to pretend that they're offended. Well, okay, whatever. And he said that the thing about the whole argument is tainted about Appu because it's not nuanced. It's not this argument we're having is not nuanced. And then he also said he was trying to pay homage to the character Appu based on Satyajit Ray, the Indian art cinema filmmaker from the 1950s. He was trying to make homage to his Appu trilogy, one of the great films in world cinema. Right. You know, did you know that I did know that he was doing that? Do you know why I knew that? I did research. When I made the fucking movie, that is covered in the movie. Matt Groening didn't watch the fucking movie. So, in conclusion, for a long time I felt very sad because my heroes are pieces of shit. Meaningful conversations were replaced with internet garbage that was ill-informed. No effort was made to have a genuine discussion, genuine dialogue. No one watched the fucking movie. And the irony is that after all these years of not wanting to be connected with Appu, I made a film and now I'm forever connected with Appu. But there's positive in this, and this is the positive in this, right? Because Andy told me to be positive at the end, so let me be positive at the end. It's not my natural disposition, by the way, but I feel like I made a love letter to my community, like I said before. I made something that so many people in my community related to and felt connected to, and it felt cathartic for them. I made a film where a lot of young people felt like somebody older than them stood up for them. That was like a big deal. I was able to get Hassan Minhaj and Aparna Nancherla and Aziz Ansari and Asif Manvi and so many notable people in a room to be able to talk about this stuff. And we all had the same experiences, right? That is a cathartic feeling, right? I love the fact that I was able to criticize The Simpsons, which is something that no one's ever done. No one's ever criticized The Simpsons before, which is wild, isn't it? The only criticism ever was it's not good as it used to be, which is not criticism, it's true. That is a fact. We're just humoring our grandparents. That's all it is at this point. We're being polite by watching the show. I love the fact that this film is being used in college classrooms to talk about race and media. This film is being used in high school classrooms to talk about race and media. And I love the fact there are kids who are watching this film, and are going to make stuff that is more complex, is multifaceted, is thinking about race and all the dynamics and all the context that we come in with, the context and the baggage we as Americans come in with. There's going to be kids who make stuff that is far better than what we see today, and I know this contributed to it. You know, they're going to be making different types of cookie jars. See how I did all the way around? And I know that at the end of it, I'm not going to be the bad guy at the end. There's no way at the end of it I'm going to look like the asshole. It's just not going to happen. So I think in closing, I would say to all of you in this room who has waited patiently through a very long closing address, watch the fucking movie. Thank you.